Out of the top 15 leasing cities in the world, 5 of them are actually in India, with Bangalore being number 1. And I really think India as a place, not only for real estate, just in general, is an exciting place to be for the next years.
Shiv, thank you very much for being here today. Pleasure having you here in Mumbai at our event.
Yeah.
We're just talking about so many things that has been happening to you in your career. But before we go there, can you start by explaining to us a little bit more about your role in your organization and your organization as well, of course?
So let me start with how I started, right? Of course, the company is a 32-year plus company. So it's a legacy family business for me, started by my father. And I think, over the years, we've really built a platform. I started in 2020, peak COVID, March 2020. Came back from the US, just studied, fresh out of college. And it was honestly a time where the market was pivoting a lot. And then people were not really stepping out of their house, right? So it was a very interesting time. I think the first 3 years, we have this thing which my father actually learned from one of his peers, where to understand how real estate works, you need to do real estate. I think for the first 3 years, I had an experience where, although I was researching a few new ventures, large part of my time went in shadowing my father. So going to all the meetings, meeting all the landlords, seeing how deals are done, seeing how planning is done, seeing strategy meetings, working personally on marketing for the company, working on PR for the company. That's where the first 3 years sort of kind of went. Of course, we had a great partnership with Blackstone, which was already going on. And we were doing significant amount of residential development as well. So we just kind of went double down on these things. The last 2 years, we've been sort of ideating the process of doing a REIT, figuring out the logistics for it. And then in the last year or so, we've actually gone and done that. So we've kind of filed our papers with SEBI in March.
How was this roadshow? Was it a successful roadshow? When you spoke to the investors, what was the perception? Can you tell us a bit more?
So, if you asked me a year ago how the roadshows were going to be, there was still an uncertainty about how office is office back fully as it was pre-COVID, right? And when you go to the US, especially to New York, you see 400 million square feet of commercial real estate, but only 40 million square feet of it is grade A, and everything else is older. So the demand in the US was a sentiment in India is always driven by what is happening in the West. But India as a commercial market is, I think, the best commercial market in the world. What has happened in the last year, especially 2024, was we had the highest year of gross leasing ever in the history of Indian office. And this year is going to top that. When we were doing research for our REIT, like when I was filing the book, we found out that out of the top 15 leasing cities in the world, 5 of them are actually in India, with Bangalore being number 1, Hyderabad being number 2, NCR being 4, Pune being 7, Bombay following after that. Wow. So when you have that kind of demand and you're doing 80 plus or 70 plus million square feet of commercial leasing in a year, I think that's a good place to be in. Another point to add is India has also become, this word has been trending a lot recently called GCC. And India has become the global capability center of the world. About 58% of the world's demand for GCC stays in India. And about 55% of that is between Bangalore and Hyderabad. And India has also become a space where it's not only a market where you have, the support jobs anymore. It's support plus value add. And I think with that sort of momentum, we see a lot more of this GCC trend coming in here. So that's been a great momentum for the market. Plus, if you look economically, I think India for the next 5, 7, 10 years seems like the place to be. The economy is booming. There's great companies coming around, not only in real estate, in all sectors. I actually was at a talk recently with Bill Gates, and he said that India's growth story is not going to go much lesser than 6.5% and not much higher than 12.5%. But if you're in this range, it's actually a good problem to have, because which other country is giving you growth like this, right? So very confident in the India growth story. And with the REIT, like the road shows we went to London, we went to Singapore, met investors from all over the world, right? And you do see them very convinced on Indian office markets. Besides the robust demand, there's been interest rate falls, cuts, without an external stimulus, without like a global sort of recession which has cued that, or a global like a COVID that has cued that. It's purely for growth. And we see that, only like there being more rate cuts going forward as well. So I think for office as a sector, it's been truly fantastic. Even residential actually in India has done extraordinarily well, especially post-COVID. Every year you see more and more sales. The metro cities, the prices have gone up quite a bit. And I really think India as a place, not only for real estate, just in general, is an exciting place to be for the next years.
And how do you see the whole geopolitical tensions in the world, especially the trade war that Trump has been imposing against the world?
Yeah.
Some say that this is actually a good thing for India, as India's benefited. Some say that actually it's bad for everyone. What's your take on that?
So, I'll give you a couple of pointers that we've and this is something we've also been asked in the roadshow. So, I have it fresh on top of my mind. So the trade wars, right? So far it's on manufacturing. It's not on services. Where real estate lies in India is services. It's not affected right now. But even going forward, if Trump was to enact sort of tariff on services, the cost arbitrage of doing a job in the US versus the same job in India is 1 to 8. So giving you an example, say in E&Y, the manager, a manager level position at E&Y in New York would have an annual salary of about $250,000 to $300,000, whereas the same person in India would be hired at 30 to 35 lakhs, which is in itself a huge cost arbitrage. When you look at real estate, the best quality assets, grade A plus assets in the country are going at $1 or $1.50 rentals a month, right? Compared to $150 in the US, right? So $150, $200 on a yearly basis, of course. Cost arbitrage is too high. India has the highest youth population in the world, highest speaking English population after the US in the world. And this outsourcing, I wouldn't even call it outsourcing. It's more of, like I mentioned earlier, back-end services plus a lot of strategic value that's being added over here now with AI and all these other innovations. I genuinely see that not so much of an impact. The benefit of doing this is far outweighs any sort of commercial or minor commercial impact that would happen in the short or medium term.
When we look at the positive aspects in the market, it's quite clear.
Yeah.
We see and we feel ourselves when we talk to the global members how they perceive India. But for somebody who is so familiar with India, I want to ask you, what could go wrong? Is there anything that would keep you awake at night? Anything that you worry, or you think that only a global disaster could take India off track?
I won't comment on the short term because short term things you can't really predict. But if you look at the long term trend, right, I think I'll flip your question is I'm up at night not because what worries me, it's I'm up at night because of what more I can do. I think Indian office is doing well. I think with data localization and a lot of, India is a big consumer of data, right? Like a big consumer of social media and tech. And we have the highest internet population in the world now. So people access to smartphones. So I think the data center industry is also going to really flourish over here. Logistics is flourishing. We have 10-minute delivery. We have Amazon, which delivers in a day. We have grocery delivery. Like we have food delivery apps. Like it's just, technology innovation's just been crazy over here. And especially the convenience of life is becoming more and more extraordinary. I personally do want to work on a little bit is real estate still is looked at in a very transactional way. And I want to find, and what we're working on at Sattva is how to create a less transaction, more of familiar relationship with our customers. When you're buying a home, especially when you're buying that $200,000 to $300,000 sort of bracket of home, you're essentially investing a large part of your savings and a large part of your income in buying that home. It's one of your biggest life's decisions. And what we've realized is that when it comes to those, rather than, marketing and, trying to hype up your own product, it's better to build a relationship of trust with your customers and build a community with your customers, because that's what garners it helps the whole ecosystem, right? So giving you an example, one of the things that we've been working on over the last 6-8 months especially, is how do we create in residential real estate the best customer experience from the time that they identify a property to when they've gotten the handover of the property, and even going after that, even further that, right? So we've sold homes to 10,000 plus families. And that is like a community that you've built, a community that trusts you, a community that wants to keep coming back to you, whether we want to do market research, we go back to them. It's like, when you were buying your home, this worked for you. But if you were to buy your home today, what more would you want? Because lifestyles have changed so drastically in the last few years that it's always good to know what the market is thinking. Apart from that, I always say this, and going back to the point of trust, right? And I also mentioned this earlier. Real estate's a very localized business, and it's a very hands-on business. It's not possible for you to be in every micro market at one point of time across the country. So giving you example, in Bangalore, if a customer wants a house in Koramangala, we don't have a property in Koramangala today, and this will make a lot more sense to Bangalore people. But if you do a little bit of research, I would want to create a relationship with our community, and I wouldn't even call them customers, which, if they are looking for a home, whether it's another developer, a developer A or developer B, and we don't have a property, they should feel comfortable enough to come to our office and ask us advice. Say that, I was looking for a home in this micro market. You don't have a property, but if you were in my position, what would you buy? And I want that sort of engagement with them, because ultimately it's a long-term decision. It's something which really matters to them in their life, and we would love to be part of it in any way.
If I can summarize what you said, it's probably talking about putting customers in the center of the decision-making process when you design products, and thinking about a long-term relationship, not just a one-off thing.
Yes.
Which is very interesting. Would you say that this is the main change that's taking place in the real estate world? Because you have international experience, you see real estate from different parts of the world. Do you think that this is the main change happening in real estate, or do you see anything else as a trend? Is it anything with technology, or no? Understanding customer needs is the top priority right now for everyone.
I think, what has happened, a few changes have happened, right? One of the biggest changes, to summarize our last point, is it's become less developer-oriented product-centric, but more customer-oriented product-centric. So people are listening to their customers before planning their product, which I think is very quintessential. Apart from that, in the last few years, there's been so many changes in laws in India. You've got RERA, you've got GST. All of these aspects have added a level of trust to the developer community. So if you ask me, about 6-7 years ago, real estate was looked at in a very negative connotation, and real estate developers generally as well. But post-COVID, especially in the last 4-5 years, I see that trend changing. People are buying homes which people weren't doing before, or people were doing it maybe postponing the decision of buying a home. I think COVID changed that for us. People realize the value of having their own space and having their own sort of community. And I think more and more people are looking at spaces which not traffic is increasing, urbanization is increasing. People are looking at micro communities which satisfy all their needs, whether it's co-working, co-living, senior living, office building in the same space with amenities, as well as grade A sort of, and probably retail as well. So you essentially, what I see as the development trends now is you have cities, but in cities you're also building micro cities within cities, so that people don't have to really spend 6 hours a day in a car stuck in traffic. And I see that changing quite a bit going forward. Infrastructure is improving dramatically. In Bombay, in the last 8 months, last 1.5 years, they've opened this coastal road. I don't know if you've had a chance to travel on it, Gustav, but I think you highly should. It's taken the journey from, say, Bandra to South Bombay, which would take an hour and a half, 2 hours, to 20 minutes. And you see this going across India. In Bangalore, we have the metro connectivity, which has improved dramatically. Some journeys which would take an hour and a half from, say, Whitefield to Mysore Road is taking 45 minutes on a single train ride. And because of this connectivity, improvement, I also feel cities are expanding a lot faster. You see tier 2 developing a lot. So you have, of course, your 8 urban cities in India, which are definitely growing at an exponential rate. But there's also smaller cities which are catching up or which are becoming hubs in their own right. And this trend also I see continuing. And largely saying because, India has this population which largely speaks English. So you have the ability to leverage your workforce across cities and across the country overall. So I think that's a great trend as well.